Good morning. My name is Jan Malin. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Wizz Air.
Thank you, Ian, for agreeing to this short interview. But your session was one of the most interesting now during Aviation Event 2026 in Cluj. One of your actually main bases in Romania. Is still Romania one of your biggest markets?
Indeed, we are the #1 airline in Romania, and it's core to our overall strategy of being Central and Eastern Europe's hometown airline.
You're the #1 airline in Bulgaria as well.
We just took that position, and we're very happy about that.
Where I came from.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, but nevertheless, what are your plans for the region?
Our plans is to continue to connect major cities and to create more options, more seats, more destinations as people become more mobile and have more opportunities to move around. And so for us, it's about defending and building our overall Central Eastern Europe, Italian and European presence.
Unfortunately, now we find ourselves in another crisis. This time sparked by the war in Iran, and the Middle East is again closed. But Wizz Air is focused mostly on Europe. Was that a good decision that you closed up Abu Dhabi base just in time?
It was the right decision at the time. We had an airline last year, which we exited for a number of reasons, including the high risk of more increased geopolitical exposure. As we now see with the recent attacks on Iran, that was the next manifestation of that risk. And as a result of our changes last year, our exposure to the Middle East is negligible. So in February, we had 4.7% of our capacity directly exposed to territories in the Middle East. As we speak right now, only 0.3% of our capacity is flying to the Middle East. The rest has been reallocated back into Central and Eastern Europe and Italy, and the rest is pending a decision on what to do on our Israeli flights, which are canceled through the 7th of April.
And how exposed are you actually to the fallout of this new conflict?
I'm assuming you're referring to fuel.
Not just fuel, but everything that is related to the conflict and its fallout. So fuel is just the first step, I think, and the first problem that we are facing directly right now.
Yeah, so indirectly, there is of course an exposure to fuel. That exposure is mitigated by our fuel hedging policy. We are the majority hedged into this next fiscal year. We continue to look at how we can apply our risk management technology and tools to be able to reduce the exposure. And ultimately, the combination of our fuel hedging, which is almost 60% for this next fiscal year in total, more in the near quarters and less in the winter period at this point, and our fuel efficiency will allow us to continue to offer low fares better than anyone else will, which is important for our business model and for our passenger base.
Would you be one of the airlines that actually are transferring those new costs onto the passenger directly?
Well, we won't be doing it in the form of fuel surcharges. That's not something that we think is appropriate for our business model. Ultimately, if our costs go up and the market forces determine what we can ultimately charge, so the supply and demand ultimately will dictate how much we can charge. Ultimately, we need to see what happens with the impact of fuel on other airlines and the reaction of other airlines on our markets. But ultimately, our commitment is to bring the lowest fares to our passenger. And so that will be what we are looking at in the context of the overall aviation industry.
Wizz Air has become one of the few low-cost, actually ultra low-cost airlines that is experimenting with new types of products. What I mean is the so-called business class that you have. How is this project ongoing? What are the initial results, and what are your plans for the future in that respect? New services, new offerings on board?
The results are positive, but let's not blow it out of proportion. It is only the first row, and it is only blocking the 2 middle seats in exchange for some priority boarding and some priority overhead bin space. And ultimately, nothing has changed in terms of the investment into the aircraft. Nothing has changed in terms of the cost base. Those middle seats didn't have a high load factor anyway. People weren't selecting them when they were trying to pick their seats. And so this is an opportunity for us to extract a little bit more revenue out of giving someone a bit more convenience. These sorts of initiatives are important as long as they're ring-fenced, as long as they're contained, and it doesn't take over the ultimate objective to be an ultra-low-cost carrier. An ultra-low-cost carrier means you have to have the lowest costs to operate, and in doing so, then you can charge the lowest fares. And that's our focus, to make sure that we bring reliable and affordable travel to our customer base.
Wasn't that just the first step? You said first row, so first step in changing the mentality of the passenger.
No, we're keeping it contained to the first row.
Yeah. And what about the interconnectivity? That is also a new service coming out of Wizz Air. People are already used to having self-transferring themselves in the low-cost airports that you operate out of, but now you're offering a new service. How was it? How was that perceived by your passenger base?
Yeah, we're 5 weeks into offering a proper connection product. And it's still two segments, two tickets that you book, and it's still a self-connect. The only difference is that we now, through a third-party partner, offer our passengers the opportunity to pay for self-connect protection, so that in the event something goes wrong, you misconnect or something, then you have a party step in and make sure that you can complete your trip. And so what we're doing is consistent with our overall strategy to eliminate complexity, eliminate distractions from our core business, which is moving people from point A to point B, but giving our passengers something they want through a partner who's prepared to accept that particular risk.
So there is no chance of you becoming the first hub ultra low-cost airline?
No, we are committed to our model, and we are committed to point, and we think that that is ultimately what we can expand and we can scale, and we don't want to pollute the model with other strategies that have been unsuccessfully tried by others.
You just received the regulatory approval by the US FAA to fly to the States, but only for charter flights. Is that also a first step of becoming a full-service scheduled airline to fly over the Atlantic?
No, it's just for a particular opportunity right now where there's going to be an intense amount of people flying to the US for World Cup charters. And we see an opportunity with our fleet, with our XLRs, to be able to offer that in a way that minimizes our risk and maximizes our profitability.
What about after FIFA? How will you utilize the 11 XLRs that you have?
The 11 XLRs will be absorbed into the fleet and operated as NEOs in our existing network. Those XLRs will be used on some of the flights where we require a slightly longer range due to either seasonal winds or depending on which of the sectors we fly in terms of the distance. And so there'll be a more versatile, more durable NEO. These XLRs are still cheaper to operate for us than the legacy COs. And so we see that as a better alternative to maintaining or extending our leases on our legacy aircraft.
Last question, because we're only talking problems today, and it's the problem with the engines. The Pratt & Whitney CEO just promised a month ago that by the end of the year, they will have 100% operational fleet of all of their GTFs. Do you believe him?
I don't think we need to, at the end of the day, form a view as to whether we believe him or not. All we need Pratt & Whitney to do is to deliver, and we have a plan that we're working on together with them, not yet firmed up, but our aspiration is to have all of our aircraft unparked and operating by the end of 2027. By 2028, when that happens, we will be a predominantly A321neo operator, flying GTF engines, and potentially even the latest technology GTF engine, which should be much more durable. And then we have the benefit of the fuel efficiency, and we have the benefit of our NEO gauge, which is 239 seats, and ultimately the combination of unparked aircraft and latest technology, youngest fleet, means that we'll be able to continue our ambitions of providing the lowest fares to the European customer base.
But this new technology will take time to be implemented on wing.
It's already available. The GTF Advantage is already available.
Are they interchangeable with the current family of engines?
They're interchangeable, and in fact, there is even retrofit capabilities for a cost for taking the legacy GTFs into the GTFA.
And how many aircraft do you currently have on ground?
On ground, depending on what has happened this morning or overnight in terms of bird strikes and things like that, it's around 30. But yeah, around 30.
No, I mean in terms of the engine problem.
Well, so the engine problem actually
directly because of that issue.
Yeah, so we don't see the powder metal issue is no longer the issue. The fact is that there's just not enough spare engines out there. So some of these engines are parked because of the powder metal issue. Some of these are parked because maybe there was some damage that occurred to the engine. We don't necessarily track anymore the issues around what the root cause is. We just know that we have aircraft that need engines. We don't have enough engines, and so that's what we're working on with Pratt to be able to get those engines back, and so we can get those planes flying. We don't differentiate.
Yeah, and do you have enough people in terms of crews, both cockpit and cabin crews?
We do. We're fortunate to be able to draw from a highly educated community of young men and women, and we also invest in our training capabilities. And working at Wizz is actually a great opportunity for a aspiring pilot, because due to our utilization, because we fly so many hours a day versus legacy carriers who don't, we give first officers a faster path to moving to captain by virtue of them being able to build and generate hours on a more compressed timeline. And so we have a path towards captain, and we have our own training programs, and we are able to pull from both our core markets, our domestic markets, as well as from other markets.
Thank you so much, Ian.